Give you the air sick bag too. Okay, we're starting. Well, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Temecula City Council to order. And we would like to thank Ali Neguleska. Stand up, Ali. Because all we can see is your big red bow. And you were playing Halloween-type music tonight, weren't you? You were. So I see a big red bow back there. So thank you very much. It was wonderful. So we're going to have our invocation this evening by Pastor John Ruhlman of Sandals Church. Pastor John, you here? Come on up. And then it'll be followed by the flag salute by Councilmember Ron Roberts. So if you please stand for the invocation followed by the flag salute.
All right.
Hi there.
All right, let's pray. God, thank you for the opportunity to come together as citizens of our community, opportunity of leadership, to make decisions. And God, this is just the grassroots level of our governance system, and what an honor it is to serve here, what an honor it is to come and participate. We ask that your eyes and your hand will be upon all the proceedings tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
And for those of you that are surprised I'm still here,
We're glad, Mr. Roberts.
I've got a couple more months to go before I take my long vacation I've been looking forward to for 22 years. Please join me in a flag salute. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We're glad you're here, Mr. Roberts. Okay, could I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Comachero?
Here.
Councilmember Nagar?
I'm here.
Councilmember Roberts?
Here.
Councilmember Washington?
I'm glad I'm here tonight.
Mayor Edwards?
Here. Okay, before we move on, I'm going to remind students, so first of all, so who's here from TVHS? Okay. And Chaparral. Good. And Great Oak. Okay. Now, I did see some students over here. Mr. Richardson, you were signing papers? Now, typically, we don't sign papers until the hour is up, because not that any of you are going to be dishonest or anything. You have to stay an hour. So even if your papers are signed, we're watching you. So who had their papers signed already? Okay, you're on
Now
the
we know.
honor
Okay.
system.
Okay. See that nice gentleman with the uniform on
See
in the back?
uniformed officers in the back of the room guarding the door. So we're keeping an eye on you. So and it's going to be such a thrilling and exciting meeting. You really won't want to leave anyway. So stay an hour with us. Unless the meeting is over. If the meeting's over early, then you can buzz out of here right after that. Okay, so we're going to move on to presentations and proclamations. We have a presentation by Susan Harrington of Riverside County Department of Public Health and Darlene Wetton of our own Temecula Valley Hospital. So come on down. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening, Mayor Edwards, City Council, Susan Harrington. I'm the Director of the Department of Public Health for Riverside County. I want to thank you very much for inviting us to speak tonight about a very important topic, which is Riverside County Ebola preparedness. With all the news about Ebola in Texas and West Africa, it is understandable that there is much anxiety within our community. The best way of protecting the community is preparedness, and preparedness begins by working with our healthcare partners. Who are our health partners? It includes our hospitals, our medical facilities, our first responders, such as paramedics, city councils, and others, who, if there is an event that we have an Ebola case reported in Riverside County, will all be called upon to respond. Riverside County communication and preparedness began months before the first events that occurred in Texas. We've held several conference calls, we've done tabletop exercises and live drills with our health partners, including our local hospitals. We asked our partners to look at their preparedness plans and self-assess them to see if there are any gaps in the system. An update to a preparedness plan might include a question that an emergency room nurse would ask about travel to West Africa, for example, or making sure that a hospital or an ambulance had enough personal protective equipment. As new information is disseminated and lessons are learned from Texas and other parts of the country, we're passing that information on to our healthcare partners. For example, we are following the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidance for monitoring 2 low-risk travelers from the affected West African countries who have returned to Riverside County. Neither person shows any symptoms of Ebola, and they deny any contact with anyone who was ill during their travels. The individuals are using a digital thermometer to test their temperatures twice a day and reporting those temperatures to the Department of Public Health. The monitoring, as the guidance says, takes place for 21 days, and then the surveillance ends. And both of our individuals who are staying at their respective residences have been cooperative with health officials. There are no suspect or confirmed cases of Ebola in the state of California or the county of Riverside. So what can we do? Well, each one of us has a role, and that is to ensure that we are as educated as possible about Ebola and to turn to reliable sources for this information. The Department of Public Health has created a website that is found at www.rivcocha.org. That's on your screen right there. And the website houses the most up-to-date information that's available from the Department of Public Health in Riverside County, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the California Department of Public Health. As a direct connection to the community and city staff, you have a vital role educating others on a variety of issues, from reassuring them about the readiness of our public health and healthcare system, communicating with staff, and providing a calming voice if someone is anxious. The Department of Public Health, with our healthcare partners, are taking the necessary steps to protect the health of the residents of your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Darlene.
Hi, Mary Ann. Honored members of the council, thank you for having me this evening. We believe that keeping our community informed is a vital part of our preparations to address any Ebola situation, and as being the new and only hospital in Temecula, we felt it was very important to share our current status. We've been working diligently to be prepared in the event we encounter an Ebola patient. As Susan shared, even before the recent situation, hospitals across the country have been prepared for infectious disease. Our staff is regularly trained on procedures when patients present with various types of diseases. Since the recent situation, we have enhanced and refined our processes and procedures to specifically address a potential Ebola patient that might present to our hospital. The safety and well-being of our employees, our medical staff, patients, visitors, volunteers, and this entire community is our highest priority. We have worked with the federal and state authorities and followed the recommendations of the Center for Disease Control, or the CDC, to devise and implement specific Ebola readiness plans. I especially want to recognize and thank the Riverside Department of Public Health for their assistance and guidance. Our Ebola readiness plans follows all the recommendations of the CDC with respect to the identification, handling, and treatment of a potential Ebola patient. We are actively training all of our intake staff on the appropriate Ebola screening procedures to ensure we identify any potential Ebola cases. It is most likely a suspected patient would present through our emergency department. Therefore, we have focused our training and protocols there. However, we have also trained at all other intake locations of the hospital to be prepared, and the same processes would be applied. We have signs posted at all public entrances to the hospital to notify patients and visitors of the importance of alerting hospital personnel if they have a fever and have traveled within the last 30 days to an affected West African nation or had close contact with someone who has traveled. We have conducted drills to ensure that our staff is trained in appropriately implementing the screening criteria and safety protocols in the event of a suspected Ebola patient. We have also coordinated with EMS personnel to jointly address the transport and transfer of a suspected Ebola patient to Temecula Valley Hospital. In the event a patient should meet criteria and established as having Ebola, we have already set aside a ready isolation area where the patient would immediately be taken. Any suspected patient would remain in the isolation area until confirmation the patient does not have Ebola. Staff transporting the suspected patient will also use protective equipment. As revisions have come forward from the CDC for personal protective equipment, we are ensuring that we have sufficient supplies and are available for our staff to prevent the transmission of Ebola. We've already designated the appropriate nursing, medical personnel, and infectious disease specialist who would have contact with a suspected patient. We have response teams designated for every shift on each day, so we have 24/7 coverage. Those individuals are receiving ongoing specialized patient training. We will also have a trained observer assist all personnel when they are putting on and taking off the personal protective equipment to ensure there are no breaches in techniques or protocol. The hospital has a designated site manager at all times who is responsible for overseeing the implementation of precautions for healthcare workers and patient safety. We're also providing the necessary information and education to all of our staff who may not have direct contact with an Ebola patient, and it's very important that we remain very calm and prepared for this situation. We've developed procedures recommending for the handling and transport of lab specimens, for the care and disposal of linens, waste, and decontamination. In the event of a confirmed patient, we are prepared to provide care and treatment, but we would be in immediate contact with the CDC and would follow their recommendations and instructions relative to the potential transfer of the patient to another facility. We're doing everything possible to ensure our staff are trained and protected to prevent further spread and infection of an Ebola patient. I want to commend our outstanding and dedicated nurses, physicians, and support staff who have worked diligently to be prepared in this situation. They have embraced the specialized procedures and protocols, have participated in numerous trainings and drills, and are ready to assist. Our healthcare providers are on the front lines, and I am humbled by their bravery and willingness to help and serve this community. As we know, new information is coming every day on this situation, and the CDC is constantly monitoring and updating their protocols and recommendations. We continue to monitor the situation as well and remain in close contact with the authorities. Again, our highest priority is to protect the safety and well-being of our patients, our staff, and this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darlene. This is a difficult subject to talk about, but we thought it was important that our residents have a comfort level and know that should anything happen, that the Valley is prepared and that our healthcare providers are prepared. So we thank you, the County of Riverside, and thank Darlene and Temecula Valley Hospital for giving this information. And as she said, there are no reported cases in California and certainly none in Riverside County. So thank you. No questions, no comments. All right.
Good.
Okay. So, do you have any public comments?
We do, Madam Mayor. We have 9.
Okay, so then you need to have gotten your pink slips in by now, so we're going to move on to public comments. Excuse me. A total of 30 minutes is provided so members of the public may address the City Council on items that appear within the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If the speaker chooses to address the City Council on an item listed on the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda, a request to speak form must be filled out and filed with the City Clerk prior to the City Council addressing public comments and the consent calendar. Once the speaker is called to speak, please come forward and state your name for the record. For all public hearing or council business items on the agenda, a request to speak form must be filed with the City Clerk prior to the City Council addressing that item. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Okay.
Madam Mayor, the first speaker is Steve Rubin, to be followed by Sharon Reed.
Mr. Rubin, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing tonight?
Good.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Edwards and City Council. My name is Steve Rubin with the WAVES Project. The WAVES Project is an acronym for Wounded American Veterans Experience Scuba. We use scuba diving as a platform to help our wounded veterans rehabilitate after a combat wound. And when we talk to the public about this, people always ask, why scuba? So I'd like to state a recent study of two neurologists out of Johns Hopkins and Kennedy Kruger International Center for Spinal Cord Injury conducted a small trial study which have produced amazing results only after 4 days of scuba diving. The participants in the study were all veterans who had become paralyzed during their service, and all had suffered PTSD. The results were nothing short of miraculous. 100% of the participants that were studied showed improvements in neurological function equal to what would normally be expected after between 6 and 12 months of task-based rehabilitation. The same participants also showed an 80% to 100% reduction in PTSD, which lasted up to 6 weeks after scuba diving. In February, this city council chose to give a portion of the Gary Sinise Foundation money to Waves Project. And we're here on behalf of our group, veterans that have already participated or are currently participating, here to thank the city council for your gift, really, to the city and the veterans of the city. And I'd like to present an appreciation certificate to the city council.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful.
Great job. Great job.
Thank you. Well, it's wonderful to see you here. I will pass this down the line so we can all enjoy it. And thank you. It's wonderful to see you again. Oh, there you go. All right, next speaker, please.
Madam Mayor, the next speaker is Sharon Reed, to be followed by Fred Bartz.
Ms. Reed, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Reed. I am a single mother raising my 2 minor children, and we are homeless due to the malicious actions of Somerset Apartments located here in Temecula, who illegally evicted us when I complained about the uninhabitable conditions while we lived there. On June 2nd, 2010, black mold was located in the wall of my master bedroom caused by a leaking pipe in an upstairs unit due to the failure of maintenance to install a washer in a shower back in February 2010. When management refused to properly eliminate the mold by only covering it with new drywall, I complained to Fair Housing, Temecula Code Enforcement, and Environmental Health, resulting in management relocating us to another unit on July 3rd. From July 15th through August 18th, the gas company issued 3 notice of hazardous condition citations for severe gas leaks in the wall heater and stove. Management assured me they would hire a licensed agency to repair the gas appliances. Instead, management served me a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit on September 7th. Although the gas company issued a 4th citation 11 days later, I was served an unlawful detainer 5 days later. Since I answered the unlawful detainer 4 days later, I was served a motion for summary judgment 2 days later. The hearing was held 8 days later. Although Somerset's counsel, Stephen Silverstein, was not present as shown in the minutes, the judgment states he was, thereby awarding Somerset a judgment against me and gave me 5 days to vacate the premise, although I am disabled and was ill at the time. Somerset never even returned my deposit of $900. A motion for summary judgment prevents the tenant from having a defense, meaning there is neither a trial nor evidence being presented to the courts against the landlord. As a result, the landlord is granted whatever is requested, like alleged rents due, alleged damages, court costs, plus attorney fees, which can amount in thousands of dollars. Somerset defrauded the courts using the name Somerset Apartments Investors LLC, in which the Secretary of State forfeited their business license on October 31st, 2006, and defrauded the city of Temecula using the name 42211 Stowwood Holdings LLC, business license 028887, which the Secretary of State canceled a day before my hearing on October 6, 2010. So when I apply for housing, I am immediately denied because of the judgment of almost $3,000 showing up on my record. So where is the help for low-income families like mine who cannot afford an attorney, when injustice is being done against them. I provided this city clerk with backup documentations for your review. Thank you for listening to me.
Ms. Reed, we want to make sure we have your contact information. Are you housed now?
Not really.
So, okay, if you can stay, we want to make sure that you have a place to stay. So will you stay and make sure we want to make sure the city clerk has information for you, and we want to make sure you have someplace to go. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Madam Mayor, the next speaker is
Bartz?
Fred Bartz, to be followed by Rex Robertson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, and other staff members present. My name is Fred Bartz. First, I would like to again thank Councilman Ron Roberts for his many years of public service, both through the City of Temecula and the County of Riverside. With Council Robertson's retirement, there will now be a new opening in the City Council. It's great to see a number of candidates apply for these positions, because that's the democratic process we have here in this country. But I think we have one candidate who I think is uniquely challenged to fill this position, and that is Matt Ron. Matt Ron was involved in working with the city even before he lived here to help save the city and protect the city against a project we know as a quarry because of its negative impacts and economic negative impacts on the city and the community. For that reason, I encourage you to consider voting for him to fill one of the vacancies from Mr. Roberts when he leaves, and vote for him for city council replacement, because I believe he will be the future and to help build a positive situation and not work on the negatives that some other people have brought forward. Thank you.
Mr. Bartz, thank you.
The next speaker is Rex Robertson, to be followed by Curtis Brown.
Mr. Robertson, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rex Robertson. Thank you, Mayor Edwards and Honorable Council, for letting me speak. I'm the president of the Inland Valley Mountain Bike Association. We're a new organization in the area, and I brought a few of our supporters with me.
Oh, my gosh.
A few.
Not a few. It's a lot.
So the Inland Valley Mountain Bike Association is a nonprofit organization whose mission is mountain bike advocacy through education and participation. We are dedicated to creating a community that participates in healthful activity, that protects the environment, that develops and cares for multi-use trails, sustainable multi-use trails, and seeking social and economic benefits for our communities through advocacy, education, and responsible participation. We represent over 400 mountain bikers through Western Riverside County. We've also partnered with IMBA, which is the International Mountain Bike Association, which is a worldwide organization a worldwide nonprofit organization whose mission is to create, enhance, and preserve trail opportunities for mountain bikers. The reason we came here tonight is we wanted to introduce ourselves and let you know that we were currently building a proposal to be presented to the Community Services Commission on November 10th. Regarding building 3 to 4 miles of single track, multi-use single track, and a bike skills park or pump track at the Ronald Reagan Sports Park. We look forward to partnering with the city on this project and others in enhancing the experience of multi-use trail users in the city of Temecula. I've given the clerk a stack of business cards that has our contact information, my personal contact information, our website, all of our social media. You can check us out. We filed all of our paperwork to get our 501c3. It's all been filed. So I just wanted to come up, introduce ourselves, and thank you for your time, and look forward for future opportunities.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Curtis Brown, to be followed by Jim Mitchell.
Mr. Brown, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Edwards and council members. My name is Curtis Brown. I'm a resident of Temecula for 9 years. I've been a firefighter in California for the past 20 years. As both a firefighter and now a battalion chief, I'm keenly aware of the risks facing our communities and our firefighters.
Can
In
you
the past 8 years, I've had the
move forward
opportunity.
so you can get you in the microphone a little?
During the past 8 years, I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Matt Ron and San Diego State University on a number of research projects related to community service, economic impacts, initial attack effectiveness, and firefighter health and safety. Dr. Ron is a nationally recognized distinguished researcher, having worked with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, university laboratories, and the U.S. Forest Service. Having tackled some of the most important issues facing our communities and firefighters, he's led the study in the U.S. on improving initial attack effectiveness, and he has also led a number of economic studies, having developed important new tools for assessing community risks and improving response protection. It is with great pride that I and CAL FIRE Local 2881 endorsed Dr. Ron as a candidate for Temecula City Council. He has the background and demonstrated leadership to ensure that Temecula has a health, safety, safe, and vibrant future. Firefighters throughout this state support Dr. Ron. Our local is 4,500 members strong. Darren Hoopengarter, Deputy Director of our Riverside chapter, has stated, Matt Ron takes a disciplined approach to answering community problems. Firefighters listen to him. And our California State President, Mike Lopez, has stated, Matt Ron goes to the scene of fires to understand for himself the challenges of our community confronts. He makes a real difference in our lives. I encourage you to support Dr. Ron on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
The next speaker is Jim Mitchell, to be followed by Teo Beam.
Mayor, members of the
Mitchell,
City
good
Council,
evening.
and staff. My name is Jim Mitchell. I have been a resident of Temecula for 13 years, and believe me, I have no plan to leave because I really like this place. And the reason I do not plan to leave is why I'm coming down here tonight and why I am particularly interested in the upcoming election. Over the years of growing up, through college, military service, and employment, I have lived in many, many communities throughout the United States, and I've got to tell you, Temecula is the top of the heap, and there is no question that the quality of life in Temecula is a result in part to the hard work and good judgment of members of the City Council. Over the years, the Temecula City Council has made the kinds of decisions that has made Temecula a great place to live, and I want to keep it that way. As we all know, there are two members sitting on the City Council who are up for re-election, Mary Ann Edwards and Jeff Comachero, and I certainly support their re-election. In addition, there are three challengers for one of the remaining vacancies on the council. One of those challengers stands head and shoulders above the remaining two, and that is Matt Ron. Over the years, I've been active in many of the local environmental issues, including issues on air pollution and open space, wildlife protection. I also was part of that long struggle to keep a very unhealthy quarry mine out of our neighborhood. In both of these important areas, as well as many others, Matt Ron has played a key part in protecting and improving our community. I believe Matt Ron has the years of experience and the educational training, as well as the drive and determination to be a very active member of the City Council. I would urge everyone to vote for Matt Ron to help keep Temecula the great place that it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Next, we have Teo Beam, to be followed by Kathleen Hamilton.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teo Beam. Good to see everybody again. It's been a while since I've been here. Let's see. I'm a board member for Temecula Valley People Helping People. Although only being a board member for just over a year, this is the third year that I'll be volunteering with the Care to Share holiday program. And Temecula Valley People Helping People is requesting funds in the amount of $5,000 from the Community Service Funding Program. All monies donated go to the Care to Share Holiday Program, goes directly towards making the program a success. As our mission statement reads, to actively meet the needs of men, women, and children in the community of Temecula, in addition to enhancing their holiday spirit. Now, I don't know how anybody in this room was raised or anything. I can only speak for myself. I was raised in a family of 5. My father was a blue-collar man. He was a cement mason. And every year he was able to provide us with Christmas presents. There weren't a lot, but just enough to keep smiles on our faces. In my English years, I thought Santa came down the chimney and delivered it all, but as I grew older, I figured it out. He couldn't fit down the chimney. He came through the back door.
Santa does come down the chimney.
We didn't have a chimney. He went the back door. It was the easier way. And me and my siblings every year looked forward to it, and it kept a smile on our face. But that isn't how it is for many families in our community. Although on the surface, as we've heard, Temecula is a beautiful place to live. That's why I live here. But there are many families that aren't going to have the extra funds to get the presents for their children. Like I said, this is my 3rd year doing the program. The first year I just saw an ad in the paper and I went. And I haven't stopped doing that. I personally know of several families here that they don't have the extra money, that they won't have the presents, for their children. As there's an article, about 2013, the PE, it shows that where is it here? Nearly 279,000 low-income Riverside County residents are classified as food insecure, and 27% of children are living in food insecurable households. Mm-hmm. It's a huge number. Temecula Valley People Helping People has been in existence for 22 years and has helped thousands and thousands of needy people. We appreciate all that the city of Temecula has done in the past and look forward to many more years of partnership. And this is a double-edged sword thing. I'm also with the Great Oak Mountain Bike Team, so here to support them, so I got 2 birds with 1 stone. So we appreciate what you do, and we will look forward to anything you can do to help us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
The next speaker is Kathleen Hamilton, to be followed by Matt Ron.
Good evening, Kathleen.
I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the City Council for all you have done for Temecula, and especially Ron Roberts, who's decided to retire. We will miss you.
Yes, we
And we
will.
will feel very, very fortunate if Matt Ron is his successor.
Thank you, Kathleen.
I like your shirt, Kathleen.
Madam Mayor, the final speaker is Matt Ron.
Oh, my gosh. There really is such a person.
Oh, my gosh. It's,
And he is as big as his reputation.
well, yeah, I was actually born premature, believe it or not. So I had to compensate for that. My name is Matt Ron, candidate for Temecula City Council. A lot of you know I've been around the community for quite some time. And in the recent months, one of the reoccurring issues that I've seen has to do with sort of the education opportunities that our community has. And in particular, it's the outdoor education that our school children and other organizations could take advantage of. And so one of the conversations that I've had recently with a number of organizations is how to find, those opportunities that I largely benefited from when I was a kid. We had a campground that our elementary schools used to all go to, and we'd spend a week up there at a certain time of the year. And so one of the things that we discussed with organizations, including our Nicholas Foundation and others, is how do we bring the opportunities not just to our local kids, but also to the special needs community as well. And in the conversations, there's some emerging opportunities that I thought maybe we should start a more rapid conversation on, which is partnering with some of the local land organizations, including folks like San Diego State University, Cal State San Marcos, but also exploring opportunities with the folks like the Nature Conservancy, Trust for Public Land, and our local foundation properties as well, because it's expensive to buy this property, expensive to maintain, and some of these organizations already have land and facilities that could be used in partnership with the city and our local community organizations. And so I'd like to bring that to your attention and hopefully maybe start a more rapid conversation about that before the end of the year. Thank you.
Mike, go ahead.
Madam Mayor. Mr. Ron, just a quick question, if you don't mind coming back. I believe as an open space subcommittee, I believe Councilmember Washington and I at one point visited some property that was owned by San Diego State University that had access to the Santa Margarita River, actually really wasn't being used, great campground area, and it's just sort of gated up and not being used, correct?
Correct.
And I know that you recently met with the R. Nicholas Foundation, and they expressed a desire to you to do some sort of campground for special needs kids, right?
Yes.
Do you think there's a possibility, having worked with SDU for a number of years, you were with them for how long?
Oh, I've been there for about 14 years.
For about 14 years. You think your connections can pull that off?
Well, I think we definitely should start a conversation, because you're right. There are opportunities and I think facilities that are somewhat underutilized by the state of California. And so, that's why I think starting the conversation now, letting them know that there's interest in that, and exploring opportunities for joint partnerships. The city spent a lot of its own time, effort, and money actually annexing, that 4,500 acres. And so it is part of the city, and it is, the largest contribution to open space within the city limits. And so it makes sense to start that conversation now.
Great goal. Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we can move on to city council reports, but I don't see anybody in the queue. Oh, Mike, okay.
Did
Mike.
Chuck beat me?
No.
Yes, he did. Slipping,
No.
slipping a little.
You are first.
Okay, that
It
is a
was,
first.
it was close, very close, but you are first. Go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of things. We got word that a gentleman who has served the city of Temecula well is moving out of town by the name of Perry Peters. Now, most people won't know Perry Peters because he tends to fly under the radar screen, but back in the day when Temecula was maybe, 25,000 people, he started the Chamber of Commerce, which is now one of the largest chambers of commerce in all of California, maybe even rivals some in the state, rather in the nation. And of course, Mr. Peters is well known for starting the Can Do Club. Now, those of you who don't know what the Can Do Club is, it was modeled after Ronald Reagan giving a speech about the people who gathered together, again, before we were a city, and held barbecues and raffles and yard sales in order to build what we now enjoy as the sports park, or what's known as the Ronald Reagan Sports Park. And that was done all volunteer work at the time with no city money. So he started the Can Do Club and also started the movement to change it from the Rancho California Sports Park into it being named the Ronald Reagan Sports Park. And if you go there today, you will see a statue of Mr. Reagan, and the second phase will have a family out there actually working on it. What's unique about Mr. Peters in this effort was that he swore he would not take one iota of government money to build that monument to Mr. Reagan. And he put all of his sweat into seeing that the money was raised from private sources, and that monument to Mr. Reagan stands there today without one iota of government money. Hence the term Can Do. I can go on and on some of the things that Mr. Peters has done for the community. He's moving out of town, and I think for his health, he's moving closer to the coast. But I'd like the council, Mr. City Manager, if you can put it on a future agenda, to explore. We have several rooms at the Ronald Reagan, or rather at the Community Recreation Center. We have, I think, 3 recreation rooms in the auditorium. Let's choose one. Put a plaque there and name it after Mr. Peters.
Nice.
I'd like to see that on a future agenda item. I think he would appreciate it, and it'll be just a good way to recognize a good community servant before he leaves town. Also, Mr. Washington, I believe you and I had discussed that matter, and you share my sentiments. I just wanted to let my council know I was discussing it with Mr. Washington. It wasn't exclusively my idea. The second thing I want to talk about is, I'm in my 15th year on the city council, and I think maybe I've made an endorsement from the dais maybe once. And I think that was earlier this year in a political campaign. We have a former council member who's now a county supervisor by the name of Jeff Stone. Now, Mr. Stone served on this council from 1992 to, I believe, when was it, 2004? Right? And where he was elected to the Board of Supervisors, and now he's running for state senate. He's a hometown boy. He's served the community for 20 years. And again, I don't necessarily routinely make endorsements from the dais, but it's important that this region, this section of Riverside, have representation in Sacramento. Mr. Stone lives locally. He lives right here in Temecula. The 3rd District Supervisor seat, in which he served us for 10 years, it also includes Temecula. In the State Assembly, our Assembly member, Waldron, most of her district is in San Diego, Escondido. We're a very small part of her district. The person running against Mr. Stone hails from the desert out in the Coachella Valley. If that seat, which is an open seat because of redistricting, gets controlled by somebody out in the desert, literally this area of the county doesn't have representation up in Sacramento. So I want to encourage you. Mr. Stone has done the work. He has a track record, and I believe that he truly deserves to be elected to the state senate, and I would encourage you to cast your vote for him. Now, the last thing I wanted to bring up, which is probably more important than all, is a couple of exhibits I want to put on the overhead. Mr. Heslin? If you can put these two up, and then I want to read from this one. I got an opportunity to get together with a cousin of mine whose daughter is moving down here from just graduated college. And I haven't seen this cousin in a long time, and she hails from Jersey. From Jersey, many people don't know I'm from Brooklyn. And
where's Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, it's where you were born, my friend, okay? So we got a couple of Brooklyn boys. And I had a chance to spend some quality time with my cousin. And she was sharing with me about her father-in-law. And there's a picture of her father-in-law. His name is Mr. Pincus Manella. And what I found fascinating as she began to tell me the story was Mr. Manella was a survivor of a Nazi concentration camp. And she gives me this little background, and you'll see where I'm going. She writes a little background. My father-in-law's name was Pincus Manella. He was born in November 1913 in the town of Klice, Poland. After the war, when the people from Klice returned to their town, there was a pogrom, which is another type of extermination, and an additional 40-something adults and children were murdered. If you Google it, there's more info. My in-laws came to America in 1947 with their 2-year-old. She says my husband was born in 1960. There's a 13-year difference. And my in-laws worked tons of odd jobs in the garment district when they came over. They wound up making a nice life for themselves and their children. Before the war, my father-in-law's family owned a lumber business that was stolen by the Nazis. And then she goes on to say, out of their family, 7 children, only 2 survived the concentration camps. Now, why do I bring this up? If you can show the next one, you can see those are his liberation papers. And on the back of his liberation papers from being liberated from the Nazi camp, if you can increase the magnification so I can read it. There it says it in 4 different languages. I believe one's French, one's German, one's Pole, and there's English. The English one, office aiding all politically, racially, and religiously persecuted in Greater Hesse. This certificate, the mentioned person belongs to that section of people who were persecuted during the Nazi regime. Any courtesies extended to him will be appreciated. So why do I bring this up? It's a long story to get to my point. First of all, this occurred. It occurred recently where people were denied their liberties, where their families and their businesses were taken away from them. And you young people in our community here, I want to emphasize that the exercise, the liberty that we have is very young, maybe 220 years old. And so here's my point. We get to go to the polls next Tuesday. We get to vote on who we want to represent us. It is really important that no matter who you vote for, whether it's somebody I mentioned, or whether it's somebody up here, or whether it's Mr. Ron, please do not squander that right. Because if you squander that right, you enable those that would be Nazis to take over, okay? Who they are, we don't know. What they may be, we don't know. But as long as you vote and as long as you speak, God willing, that can never happen again. That's my 2 cents.
I wondered where you were going, and that was very good. Mr. Washington.
Madam Mayor, that's a hard act to follow. Mr. Nagar got 90% of what I wrote down for him to say. So I'm going to leave it at that. Please vote on Tuesday.
That was very good. Okay, I say no more. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine, and all will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the City Council request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Adams.
I'd like to recommend that we remove agenda item 4 from tonight's agenda.
Okay, going to remove agenda item 4, and what did you say after that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
From the agenda.
Just remove it from the
Move it
consent
agenda.
calendar.
Okay, removing agenda item number 4. So I'm going to go back and read number 1, standard ordinance and resolution adoption procedure.
Point of
Mr.
order.
Washington.
Mr. City Attorney, do we need to take some sort of action to make that change occur?
No, that's been taken off by the staff, so there's no
Okay.
action required by the
Okay.
council.
Item number 2, action minutes. Number 3, list of demands. Number 4 has been removed by staff. Number 5, approve State of California Department of Housing and Community Development Housing-Related Parks Program Grant Award. Number 6, award construction contract to All American Asphalt for the Inez Road pavement rehabilitation, Jedediah Smith Road to Vallejo Avenue, PW 12-12. Item number 7, approval of possession and use agreement for the Southside parking lot in connection with the Murrieta Creek Flood Control, Environmental Restoration and Recreation Project.
Move agenda. Second.
So points of order, we have an abstention. What do we have? I'm going to abstain from item number 7. Approval of possession use agreement for Southside parking lot in connection with Murrieta Creek flood control because of the proximity of my employer, which is the Boys and Girls Club. We are located right on the creek on Pujol Street. So it's due to proximity, how close we are to
That's correct.
Murrieta Creek. But I don't have to leave the room because it is the consent calendar. Is that
Right,
correct,
that's
Mr.
correct,
City
too.
Attorney?
If a member of the council requests to take it off consent and discuss it, then you would have to leave.
All right. And we're not going to be pulling that item, I don't believe. Anybody? No?
No.
All right. Okay, so I will accept a motion and a second?
Already
Yes. Okay, so you can cast your votes with a noted abstention. And that is unanimous. Okay. So, moving on, I'm going to recess the Temecula City Council meeting, passing the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem Comachero for Temecula Community Services.
I thank you, Mayor Edwards. I'd like to call this meeting of the Temecula Community Services District to order. Madam Clerk, I will dispense with the roll since we know we're all here tonight. Do we have any public comment under this section?
We do not.
Thank you. Then we'll skip to the only item on the agenda tonight on consent calendar. Item 8 is consideration of the approval of the action minutes of October 14th, 2014. A motion by Mr. Nagar, a second by Mayor Edwards. Please cast your vote. That motion does carry unanimously. Do we have a report on community services tonight in Mr. Hawkins' absence?
Yes, we do. Good evening, President Comachero and directors. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight and to invite you and the residents to the Patriotic Salute to Veterans event. The date is Tuesday, November 11th, from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. This event is a patriotic tribute to those who served our country with an evening of extraordinary music featuring the Inland Valley Symphony on the steps of the Civic Center. Secondly, I'd like to mention we have a 25 Days of Fun celebrating Temecula's 25th anniversary coming up. The 25 days leading up to the City of Temecula's 25th silver anniversary, which takes place on December 1st, will be filled with 25 days of fun. The fun will begin on Tuesday, November 11th, with the Temecula's Patriotic Salute to Veterans and conclude on Friday, December 5th, with the annual Santa's Electric Light Parade here in Old Town. These commemorative events are sure to make Temecula's silver anniversary extra special for our visitors and our residents. Visit TemeculaEvents.org for a full listing of the activities and events. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Julie. Mr. General Manager, have a report tonight?
Nothing tonight. We just send our heartfelt prayers and thoughts to Mr. Hawkins and his family during this time as well.
Thank you. Just because people may be wondering, Mr. Hawkins' father passed away, and so all of our thoughts are with him at this time. Thank you. Do we have any board member comments?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll adjourn. Before we do, I just wanted to echo some of the comments you've heard up here. Voting is not just a right, it's an obligation, and I don't care who you vote for. Well, I kind of care, but but that's not the purpose of what I'm saying. Regardless of your choices on election day, the important thing is to get out and vote. And I will take a plug, though, and a cue from Mr. Nagar. Get out and vote for Mr. Stone for state senate. It's real important for our region to have one of our local guys up there in Sacramento. He's Temecula through and through, and so we need to have him up there. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn to the next meeting. Motion is made by Mrs. Edwards.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Washington. Any objection?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned.
Okay, and I will reconvene the Temecula City Council meeting. Any person to submit written comments to the city council, we don't really have a public hearing though, do we? No?
No, we
Do?
do.
Yes? Oh, because we're voting, oh yeah, Assembly Bill, okay. Any person may submit written comments to the city council before a public hearing or may appear and be heard in support of or in opposition to the approval of projects at the time of the hearing. If you challenge any of the projects in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the city clerk or prior to the public hearing. So number 9, approve Assembly Bill AB 1600, financial reports, development impact fee expenditures. Okay, so we have a staff report, please.
Yes, we do. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. In accordance with Government Code Section 66006, the city is required to provide annually a report detailing the collection and expenditures of the development impact fees. The fees are collected in order to mitigate the impacts created by development and are to be spent or committed within 5 years of collection of the fees. The attached reports are in conformance with the government code, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? No questions of staff? All right, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any public comments?
We do not, Madam Mayor.
All right. Anyone want to file public comment? No? Going once? Going twice? All right, then we will close the public hearing. Any discussion, council members? No?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. And cast your votes, please. And that is unanimous on item number 9. All right, then moving on to city council business, item number 10. Approve recommendation for community service funding program for fiscal year 2014-15. Item number 10, and we can entertain a staff report right now, and I am going to have to abstain on a portion of this. And Peter, would you like to explain why?
Yes, I'll go through it. Actually, 3 of you have interests with some of the 501c3 nonprofit organizations that have applied for this, so we will have to have a special procedure to go through this. We've done it before, but I'll repeat it once again. Councilmember Washington has some business dealings with All From the Heart on items 1, 2, and I think 3, as well as the Waves Project, which I believe is related to the business that he has, the California Teas. Then Mayor Edwards is the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of Southwest County, so she will not participate on item number 5, the grant that goes to, or that's proposed for them. And then Ron Roberts is an unpaid member of the Board of Directors for Habitat for Humanity, Inland Valley, as he has been for probably 20 years, and he will not participate on item number 8. Now, what we will propose to do is Ms. Lowry will give the staff report, no questions from the council at that time, and then we need to take each one of these items that council members have potential conflicts with, and then the council can ask questions. That council member will need to leave the room. The council would ask questions. Council would then take an action on that item. The council member would then return, and we'd go on to the next one. And as I say, we've done that in the past. It's a little bit awkward, but it is exactly what the Fair Political Practices Commission has said needs to be done when there are a project like, or an item like this where you have several funding recommendations. So as long as you don't vote on the one that you're involved with, then we should be okay.
All right.
Okay?
And point of order, Peter, because do we have any speakers on this, first of all?
We do have one speaker,
We have
Madam
one
Mayor.
speaker. So because of the complexity of this, you want me to take the speaker ahead of the staff report? Does it matter?
No, I think what you need to do is to hear the general staff report, and then we'll take the items in which council members have a conflict, and if the person has a comment on one of those, then you should hear it at that time, because a council member with the conflict should not be present when the questions are asked.
Okay.
Or the comments made.
I know. Okay. The speaker's not in queue anymore.
The what?
So I don't have the speaker in my queue anymore, Randy.
Madam Mayor,
We still got to have a staff report.
the
Yeah.
speaker is Kevin Buss.
Okay, so still there. Okay. So go ahead, Betsy.
And since he's not going to speak on any of the items in which there's a conflict, you could take his comments after the staff report.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks. Go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Edwards and our City Council. Betsy Lowry, Senior Management Analyst for the City Manager's Office. The city's community funding program grants up to $5,000 for services of programs offered by local nonprofit organizations that benefit the City of Temecula residents. Councilmember Mike Nagar and Councilmember Chuck Washington are the appointed council members serving on the Community Funding Ad Hoc Subcommittee. This year, the city received 28 applications from nonprofit organizations requesting over $132,000. Funds totaling $76,000 are budgeted in the 14-15 fiscal year Community Service Funding Program. The recommendation presented to the City Council this evening would fund 16 programs totaling $71,085. Each of these recommendations are listed here in the staff report and also on your screen. At this point, before any discussion or questions, I'll turn this item back over to our City Attorney, Peter Thorson, and leave the recommendation on the screen. Thank you.
I think if you wish, you could hear from the one speaker since, as I say, he's not talking on any items that, where there are any conflicts.
I'm going to call the speaker, please.
Kevin Buss, please. Thank you.
Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Kevin Bustiker. This is Jody Christopher next to me. We're members of the Veterans Foreign Wars Motorcycle Club. We're here to discuss a grant application in front of you today for $5,000 for emergency food assistance. We've run this program since 2011. In that time, we've provided over 19,000 meals to senior citizens, veterans, and widowed spouses of deceased veterans. The program, we deliver the food to the seniors. For some of these people, it's the only food that we put in the refrigerators. We have zero overhead for administrative fees. We've recently expanded our program to include the Mary Phillips Senior Center. Right now, they receive their daily lunch from a Riverside County program, but the program does not deliver lunches for the seniors on holidays that fall during the week. This past Columbus Day, we showed up, we cooked meals, we provided 50 meals, hot meals, for the seniors who otherwise wouldn't have had a lunch there. Many of them asked for doggy bags so they can bring it home for dinner. What I would ask the council, if there's any way to reconsider the VFW Motorcycle Club Emergency Food Grant. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Sure. Ms.
May I?
Comachero.
How far is your reach geographically? Do you service only those in the city of Temecula, or do you go outside the city as well?
With this grant, it's the city of Temecula.
Well, and what do you do as an organization?
We go, we purchase the food, we build the food boxes, we go and we actually deliver food boxes. We also purchase food box certificates delivered to the Temecula Veterans Center, who they're able to give to veterans who are coming in there, Temecula residents who are coming in for counseling and have needs for their family.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I have one more question, too. Is there a way that you can, track that for us or document that for us?
Yes, ma'am. And we turn that in on a regular basis.
Okay.
May I suggest this, Madam Mayor? Councilmember Washington and I sit on the committee. We've done that for a number of years, and it's a good time to kind of give you an idea of how we select funding. As the staff report indicated, we have about $136,000 worth of requests and about $76,000 to really give out and divvy up. And in that amount of 76, not everybody gets what they ask for. Everybody wants $5,000 most of the time, but we obviously can't give everybody the full amount of the grant and sort of spread it around. I know that when we met, and I'm trying to think back because we, again, went over a myriad of different organizations, so it all kind of blurs together, but I think that we came to the conclusion that there may have been a duplication of services. But having said that, why don't we do this? I don't think it's out of line that the subcommittee look at that again. We left money in the pot for exactly this purpose. Unless the council wants to go another direction, if Mr. Washington, if you concur, we can look at it again.
You're a new applicant, and so we didn't have some background on you. We looked at the application. We discussed what it seemed that you were proposing to provide, and as Mr. Nagar said and stated, it seemed like it was a duplication of efforts, and we were thinking that we were already providing food at our senior center. So if there's something that we're not aware of, I think as long as the council is supportive of that, it would be entirely appropriate, I think, for us to reconvene, review that application, get more information. There is some balance left, a little over $4,000, and from your statement, it sounds like what you're doing is providing a great service for our seniors in our community. I'm happy to look at it again as well if the council wants to go in that direction. But the reason that the award wasn't granted was because we couldn't get enough out of the application that gave us a good sense of exactly what was being provided to citizens of Temecula.
Yes, sir.
Because it sounds to me like you added meals weren't provided on holidays during the week. I mean, that sounds like new information that may not have been in the application.
That's something that we were just recently made aware of, and when we saw that need, we filled that need.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for reconsidering.
So now, time for
now-
somebody to leave.
That would be time for Councilmember Washington to leave.
Before they do, in deference to those previous speakers, do we need a motion to refer that back to the subcommittee?
You probably do, but you need to take care of the ones with the conflicts first, and then you can address all of the issues at one time.
Great. Thank you, Peter.
And I have one more question for point of order. Is there any reason we can't approve these now and then come back and do that one later?
The way the FPPC sets up the segregation rule, which is what it's called, it's that you take the ones with the conflicts
No,
first.
I mean, if, address these gentlemen funding at a later time,
She wants to do it now instead of
A
later.
different meeting.
a different meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, you can definitely do it at
Okay.
a later meeting.
Okay.
I understand the recommendation is that it go back to the subcommittee and then it'll come to you at a
Mhm.
subsequent meeting.
Okay.
Yes, that's
We
okay.
don't have to put everything off.
No, you don't, you could do everything other than that.
Okay.
So on items on the chart, items 1, 2, and 3 relating to All from the Heart, and item 27, the Waves Project, Councilmember Washington would leave, and then the council can approve or take whatever action you wish on those now.
Okay. As
Madam,
soon as he shuts the door,
Madam Mayor?
I move the item.
Jeff had a hand up.
You know what? Mike's on the subcommittee. Go ahead and move it.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's fine.
go ahead
Okay.
and move those.
I'll second it.
It's the
Okay.
staff's recommendation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so press your
Subcommittees.
buttons.
Right.
Motion and a second. Okay, cast your votes. And
Might be waiting for
Might be
Mr.
Chuck.
Washington.
Yeah. See if,
Hit an abstention on his,
good abstention.
unless it's Ron. Ron?
No, I think Ron's got it.
I got the abstention.
Okay.
Got it, okay.
Okay, so I noted Mr. Washington's
So it is
abstention.
Mr. Roberts. You're holding up the whole thing, Ron.
No, he did it.
So-
Don't pick on him.
She said it's.
Just push a button.
Oh, any button.
Any button.
I'm gonna
Push a
come
button.
over there and step on your tongue.
I'm gonna miss you, Mr.
So you
Roberts.
can say anything now that you're quitting, you
so
know?
I'm assuming that it's 4 ayes and abstention as noted for Mr. Washington. Okay, there we go, there it is, yep. All right, so that's good.
Okay.
And then the next one would be item 5 on the chart for the Boys and Girls Club of Southwest County, and Mayor Edwards would need to leave for that.
I leave the room for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I know. The whole thing goes just,
Oh,
you
you
know.
missed it.
Okay, now that the mayor has left the room, we'll entertain either discussion or a motion on item 5,
So
granting the
moved.
Boys and Girls Club. We have a motion from Mr. Nagar. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. Please cast your votes.
And that's the recommended action.
That's
Recommended
correct.
action on number 5, granting Boys and Girls Club.
His screen is off, so that's why he's not casting a vote.
Okay, Mr. Roberts, what is your vote? Give me a voice vote.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Roberts is an aye, so with that, we've got 4-0 with Mrs. Edwards out of the room. And she can come back now.
Yes. And then the last one is the Habitat for Humanity, and Mr. Roberts would need to briefly leave while you act on that one.
I think he broke his terminal, and be sure that it's deducted out of his last check, okay, if you can make that note, okay?
You notice how efficient the city is, that his machine breaks at the very time that he's choosing to retire, so it just all works out.
You'd think he could push a button after all these years.
Of course, the city attorney says he doesn't make enough to pay to fix it, okay, but we'll send him a bill. Okay, so I'm gonna move those staff recommendations.
It's,
That was the one, Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, item 8, I'll second that.
You may have to push his button for abstaining. Oh, she's got Randy's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Off the dais. I like that.
So,
and now when Councilmember Roberts returns, you can take whatever action you wish on the rest of them, and including the request that was made from the podium
So
tonight.
move the balance, and on the, I forgot the name,
The VFW,
VFW,
It's California VFW Motorcycle Club
Motorcycles.
Empire.
got it.
Yeah.
So I move the balance and refer VFW Motorcycle Club back to the subcommittee for consideration.
second.
Right.
Can we vote for you?
Mr. Washington, thanks for helping Mr. Roberts.
Seniors got to stick
Yeah.
together.
Oh, that was me, sorry.
oh my gosh.
All right, okay, okay. All right, I
Ever
was-
say anything about Mr. Roberts
Oh,
again?
boy. We'll get you
Okay,
for that
that
one.
is 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Very good.
What are you applauding? That we just were able to push
That
our
we got
buttons?
this complicated thing out of the way. All right, that's excellent. And moving on to departmental reports, Mr. City Manager, anything?
No, items 11, 12, 13 are just receive and file for
Okay.
the council's information.
Mr. City Attorney,
I
are
have
we?
nothing tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, I do. We did have a, we did have a closed session, but there is nothing, no action to report under the Brown Act for that closed session.
All right.
Move adjournment.
I have a motion to, and I need a
So moved.
second to move
Second.
adjournment. And Mrs. Reed, did you stay? I asked her to stay. She's outside? Okay.
Good.
All right, so motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Yes.
Did you win?